Um, this is something where I'm supposed to capture the banter. I'm supposed to capture the banter, and Sean routinely tells me that I don't capture the banter, and he always does this thing where he like looks at me in this like sigh way after I said something that would be funny to have recorded, and he's like, "Can you please just fucking hit the record button?"
That's not how computer viruses work. Was the funniest joke I've heard in actual weeks.
Well, we want to give Jason the option of talking about his child on camera. And
okay, well, I didn't say that part. You know, everything
to all of our five.
I'm happy to switch this into a kid-focused podcast. We could talk about diaper changes and sleep strategiries.
We've got a client for that. Like, yeah, we can start with kid stuff, and I can put product placement every time.
You know what's funny is one of our clients is doing like consumer research by having the AI like look at like what they're basically what their focus kind of is, and I won't tell you what client it is, at least on camera. But what they're trying to do is they have a really, really good focus. The way that they think about products for families is by just like thinking about the pains that parents have, which I think is kind of cool. And they have a bunch of AI bots that they're using to try to gather that information, which I think is kind of cool. So I don't know, maybe we can develop cool products by actually listening to parents.
So what would I need to do to sign up for that? You need to record me and my activities for forever?
No, you basically just need to complain a lot on the internet, and then you have the hope that an AI bot reads your complaints. Is kind of how that works. Just go and complain on the internet. Or honestly on this forum, right? Because one of the things that they could do is they can in theory, like one of the AI agents that they have technically has the ability to watch a YouTube video and record like what happened in it. And so if it finds the YouTube video, then it's good.
This is your chance to speak on behalf of all parents, Jason.
That's too much pressure.
Yeah, Jason.
I'm operating on limited sleep right now. Hoping I'm not getting sick. Things are... life with a toddler is challenging.
But, there's peaks and then it ends. And so...
Great segue, Sean.
I'm Ibi Syed.
I'm Sean Collins.
And this is Numbers and Narratives.
All right, Jason, before we go any further, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, I can. I'm happy to do that. Before jumping in, I personally have something I need to get off of my chest. And that is, how should I feel about not being invited onto Numbers and Narratives 60 episodes in? What gives? What gives it?
Wait, what are you talking about?
He's saying he should have been earlier. And the problem, Jason, is we wanted to make sure we built an audience worthy of your insights. And so we've been building.
Do you want to know? You want to know why? Do you want to know why? There's actually a very, very legitimate reason for this. The company shall remain unnamed, but we actually have a contract with them where we have to get approval from the PR team or any sort of team before having people on. And so if you've noticed, you're actually the first person that isn't Rebecca that I used to work with, because they're like a client, right? So that's like the reason why.
So you're saying I should feel honored?
Yes.
Well, you should, I guess, feel honored that I didn't ask you. Yeah, you should feel honored that I didn't ask you to.
No, he's the first guest from said company.
Yeah, the first guest from said company. So, Jason, how about you tell the audience how you and I know each other?
Ivy and I go back, 5-7 years?
Somewhere between 5 and 7 years.
For the past 10 years, I was at Peloton. I was a relatively early employee there. I joined around employee 50. At the time, there were about 50 folks on the support team. And, as you guys know, Peloton was a rocket ship. The growth was insane. We were growing 3 to 4x every year. So the first year, we grew up to 30 on the support team, then 120, then 500, then 1,500, then I think we topped out at like 2,300 seats across the support team. So in 5 years, going from 10 to 2,300 people, it was every process, every policy, every technology was being stretched, dialed up to the highest amount. And so during that time, I had a chance to touch almost every aspect of the support journey, mostly policies, processes, technology. I own the support roadmap. And I had a number of side quests along the way. For
Tell us about
a
the
little
side
bit
quests.
in there, I was a hand model for the support videos. And then they shipped me out on a cross-country road tour to help train our delivery technicians because we weren't happy with the quality of our third-party delivery techs. And then for the past 2 years, I was focused on a full rebuild of Peloton's support tech stack. So that's our phone system, chat system, ticketing, our self-service help center, AI chatbot, the whole kit and caboodle. Really focused on becoming much more operationally efficient and CSAT focused. And so I recently wrapped up my time at Peloton, and I've been trying to figure out what's next for me, what I want to do for the next 10 years. And so I started, I've been interviewing with a whole bunch of companies, but I also started a new side quest called Lentil Labs. And we're focused on building tools for smaller CX teams that I wish we had access to at Peloton along that growth trajectory. Sean, you alluded to off the top. I have a toddler. He's turning 2, and have had the opportunity to spend some extra time with him.
That's so awesome.
Which is very cute. Jonah is very cute. That's a. Can you talk to me a little bit? Tell us a little bit more about Lentil Labs, actually, before we keep going. And we definitely have like a sort of sequence of things that we want to talk about on this. But talk to us a little bit more about Lentil Labs and what some of those pain points are, right? Because like you and I have talked about this a bunch in the last few weeks. But talk to me about like what the idea is, why you came up with it, and like what the sort of like mission and vision is there.
Yep. So a lot of the ticketing and support tooling platforms out there solve somewhere between 75 and 85% of what you need to run a contact center. But there still is this gap, 15 to 25% of extra tools you need to tag on to really properly run your contact center. And so I've been focused in that space, developing utility tools for support organizations. Our most recent application is focused on internal notifications across the support team. Let's say you're having a system outage, you have a new product you're launching, some type of notification you need to get out to your team. A lot of teams focus on leveraging Slack or Teams or walking across or doing a lap on the support floor to get news out, but there's no analytics tied to that. And so I released a tool, it's embedded within Zendesk, where you can send out notifications that can include video, photos, links, what have you, and track how many people actually saw that notification, acknowledge the notification, how long it took in that time period. And so then you can run analytics on your internal communications, which you don't have access to either with Slack or Teams, or with supervisors. Let's say somebody happens to be out and missed a notification that was critical for them to do their job. And so we're focused on closing that gap in building tools for support teams to run a more efficient and supported operation.
That's super cool.
Incredible. I really, really like that. And going back to kind of what you said a little bit earlier about some of the work you were doing at Peloton in the last 2 years, which is like becoming a little bit more operationally focused, becoming a little bit like, where do you find like a lot of the sort of like application layer that y'all are developing at Lentil Labs? Like, how do you find like where do you like what a lot of the sort of CX people that listen to this podcast are very like metrics driven. Like, where do you envision like the biggest gaps being like sort of closed?
Good question. I think the challenge will be in the world of AI, there's so many challenges you can tackle with these extra tools. And ultimately, at the end of the day, what companies and operations leaders care about is, are you improving CSAT or are you reducing costs? And I personally care a lot more about the CSAT side of things, the human aspect of things. Obviously, cost is important. You have to run an operationally efficient organization, but a great CX team is in the CSAT world. That's the reason you exist as a team. You don't exist. Most CX teams are a cost center. They will continue to be a cost center, even with AI. Sure, you can do proactive outreach, what have you, but people only call into support when there's problems, and solving those problems delightfully, either with an AI or a human, is the space I like to operate in.
I like that. Super cool. Okay, so I want to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about what are you smirking at?
There's I can't tell what they're celebrating yet, but one of the offices next to me is celebrating something, and so I'm just hearing lots of cheers and applause, and it's coming at like funny times in this conversation, where like he'll be like, CX is always a cost, and they're like, yeah.
Yeah, we should get if this was higher production. We're currently sitting in the same office, Jason. He's just, because one of us can be in the office at any given time. We've relegated Sean to a booth, and I am doing this podcast from my desk.
I'm next to the printer in Shredder, so if there's anything you need to print out real quick, I got it.
Yeah. All right. So switching gears a little bit, one of the things that we wanted to talk about is, and Jason, like I think we chatted like last week, and one of your areas of expertise that I think that you're actually like one of the few people in the world that at least I've met that is uniquely good at both of these things. You both understand technology at like a very, very deep level, but you also understand, and your role has been sort of like the sort of service design, right? Like, how do you think about experiences? How do you think about support experiences? How do you think about customer experience as a whole? And how do you blend the two together, right? And in this sort of like, and one of the conversations that we thought would be interesting to talk about is this idea of optimizing like the peak end rule, right? Where it's like, hey, how do you sort of like, how do you use AI to like make sure that the experiences that a person has with a brand or with a company from a customer support perspective are optimized there, and how do you use AI to like sort of do that? Before I dive any further and keep rambling and not make any sense, can you explain to the audience like what the sort of peak end rule is? Like, how do let's start with the definition.
Sure. So I majored in economics for my undergrad, and I am always drawn to topics that combine human psychology and economics. Economics is the science of how people make decisions, and psychology is obviously deeply tied to that. And so the peak end rule was developed by really the one of the founding members of like microeconomics, specifically around decision making. His name's Daniel Kahneman. If you look him up, he is unbelievable. He's a Nobel Prize winner. And so this research was completed in the mid 90s and early 2000s. But I think it's worth talking about today, now that we're in an AI context world. So the theory came from a number of experiments, mostly focused around pain. And when I think about CX, one way you could describe CX is it is a science of pain, right? The reason somebody, like I mentioned before, somebody's reaching out to support is because something went wrong, and people are, no one's calling support when everything's working perfectly. And so one way you could frame up support is that everyone who works in CX is a masochist, because that's the world that we live in. We live in pain. You can call me out on that if that's a horrible take. So anyways, the
I
study,
think that's a very good take. I think it's a very good take.
The studies were focused around how folks react and respond and remember pain. And so participants were submerging their hands in painfully cold water. And in one part of this, the one group was exposed to water that was the same cold temperature the whole time. And then in another group, they were experiencing, in a shorter amount of time, water that was painfully cold, but at a certain point, it got colder, and then made slightly warmer. And so what they found was, when you were asked to reflect on that experience, the folks who reported a more painful experience were, even though they were exposed to less pain, was the people who had that peak experience. And then in other iterations of the study, they remembered the water getting warmer. So like they would remember the end. They've also run this experiment in other medical settings. So like if you're in certain medical procedures, they found that people who had discomfort that had a peak amount of pain, that was the most memorable moment. And especially they would remember, looking back, the end of that experience. And so what I think that this shows is that, and we can talk about this in personal context too, people don't remember things as a recording. They only remember the summary, and they only will remember the summary in key moments. And so when you're thinking about designing experiences for any type of customer facing experience, whether that's in your personal life, or in a sales organization or support context, designing around those moments that are actually going to be memorable, that somebody's going to leave a review on, that somebody's going to.
Can I interrupt, actually?
Yeah.
Before we keep going, just to take it back for a hot second, because I have one question. So one group, hands in the water, it was the same level of cold. The other group,
The whole time.
it was cold. Yeah, the whole time. The other group, hands in the water, it was very cold to start with, peaked at a very, very high level of cold, and then got warmer. Which one said that it was more painful?
So there were a number of ways that they ran the study, but the one that I think is most interesting is, so there was the control group. They received regular, constant temperature. And then there was another group where they received constant temperature and then dropped the temperature, or made the temperature warmer at the end. And so you would remember the cold temperature, even though overall you were exposed to less pain when they made the temperature warmer. So
basically, yeah. So what you're basically saying is people that had sort of like the variability ended up sticking in their mind quite a lot more. Now, a question for you is like, does it stick in their mind as like is there sort of like a positivity negativity in that, where it's like, is there like a corollary there where it's like these people remember the pain a lot more? Like they're like, is it like because it got warmer at the end, their quote unquote like NPS is a little bit higher than somebody who like it was cold for the whole time, right? Like is having like sort of it be warmer at the end like a positive or a negative on the experience?
So in the experiment, you are onto something, Ibby. In this experiment, they would report it as more painful in that second grouping.
Okay.
But when you're thinking about a support context, what they found is that if people have a great experience, they're actually unlikely to, and like if nothing goes wrong in their support experience, they're going to either not leave a review or leave a decent review. But if you have something go wrong at some point and you're able to resolve that gracefully, you will report that as a better experience than if nothing had gone wrong. And so you could design a support experience.
We need to create some bugs in Coterra so that like when you're setting up your first agent, something goes terribly wrong, you show up, solve it. they love us.
You
Yeah.
yes,
So basically,
you would get
the way
better
it should
reviews.
the way it should work is like somebody should come to us, say, hey, like this AI agent isn't working. Why isn't it working? And then while they're trying to mess with it, it hacks into their bank account, steals all their money, but then we give them the money back. And so
They would love you. They would love you.
then they would love you. Oh, thank you so much. I really shouldn't be saying these kinds of things. This is definitely something where if an auditor heard this, they would be like,
Yeah, that was a weird example.
Are we
that was a
recording?
really weird example. Yeah, we're all
This is the practice round. I don't let it be released the first recording. You have to stay for a second hour.
Yeah, we're gonna do a second recording. No. We have no ability to hack into anyone's bank account. It's not possible. That was, just
Maybe he's just
Technology
done
does not
some
exist.
exploration in that. It just hasn't cracked it yet.
yeah, it didn't work. Anyway,
All right, back on topic.
yeah, okay. So this makes a ton of sense. So what you're basically saying is that like if a resolution, even in instances where the overall experience is worse, if you can provide a resolution of some kind, it usually leaves the person feeling better than if you, I guess, does that like, yeah, that makes.
So is and to keep it to a CX perspective and not to water, is the thought that they would treat or view the brand, product, company, whatever as better, or would they view that support interaction and that support agent as a better experience?
I think
So. I think those are two distinctly different things, right? Like, one, if there's like a problem with your software and someone solves it for me, great, thank you for the great service, but I can still also be upset about the product or be considering churning because I'm having problems with the product, right? And so like we joked about inserting bugs, but that isn't what this actually says, where like you can't just create an awful experience and then resolve it and have it be a great memory.
I'm proposing a great support experience should be intentionally designed. Nothing should happen by accident. And when you are mapping out the pain that you inflict on your customers in designing your support journey, you should think about the levels of pain and on the positive side, try to maximize those spikes. On the negative side, try to minimize those spikes. And then think about, as you're mapping this out, maybe you have multiple spikes during the journey. Maybe you want to have the spike not happen right at the beginning. Maybe you want to have it in the middle or towards the end, and then really focusing on a strong close. And so like those are the areas I think that's worth exploring. And I think specifically in an AI context, that is where it's kind of a game changer. And we can talk about, go into each of those areas and how it's worth designing and thinking through how do you maximize pleasure and minimize pain.
And when you think about that design, are you primarily thinking about friction being the pain, or are you thinking more about the pain being what they're writing in, calling in, messaging in about?
Both. It's all inclusive customer pain, right? Like I know there's a trend towards using customer effort score as a way to measure that. And so you can have that pain be the amount of time somebody sits on hold waiting to speak to a human. The pain could be in that handoff between AI and human, or having this, call back multiple times because your issue wasn't resolved. So support can introduce pain in a whole number of ways, and it's worth intentionally designing what those experiences are and thinking through the trade-offs when you are adding a phone channel, for example. If you know you're going to not be operationally responsive on the phone, is it worth even turning that on? Or if you're adding an AI bot, how much pain do you want to introduce on your customer base when they're testing it, right? Do you go live sooner with less confidence, or do you hold back and take a more cautious approach?
Very interesting. And how do you?
Yeah, that makes. Oh, sorry.
How do you start to map that out?
Yep, I think let's start with positive peaks, because I think that is an easy area to sink our teeth into. So hospitality is, I think they do this the best from a positive perspective, right? It's the surprise and delight upgrade you get when you're checking into a hotel. And this costs them nothing, right? They have an open room and you get an upgrade for, if you happen to have status or whatnot. Or a restaurant on your birthday delivers a surprise food item or dessert. Like that is A, it happens at the end, and B, it's just it leads to just a really positive experience. For the support side of things, like I think that those designing for those positive peaks is that bread and butter of a great support organization. So having a short wait time when you're contacting into support, whatever the channel is, having a human or AI that's actually able to solve the problem, like that is the business that we are here to that support is focused on, and starting with those initial enabling your support team to actually solve those problems, and maybe getting rid of some of those things that support can't solve. So like, let's say you happen to have a phone number on your website, and you get a lot of marketing requests that come into that support center. A support team is ill-equipped to answer any type of marketing call. They're just going to take a message and pass it on. So maybe you design an intake form or an email address to pass off those marketing comps. Maybe I see you smiling.
I really like this. This is actually weirdly a question that we get a lot. I won't go too into detail. I have a call right after this one where the person is what they're trying to do is they're trying to create a system that monitors all of their Zendesk tickets to figure out like what's a sales opportunity, because a lot of times like they just like lose stuff that way. So it's just weirdly topical. Okay, this is super interesting. I was trying to find. Oh, sorry, go for it, Sean.
I like the service industry example because I think that's super accessible, and we kind of all can visualize that pretty easily. B, one of my favorite books is called Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. I feel like every CX person and lifecycle marketer I know loves this book, and I think it's just a great manifesto for how to build a great experience.
Can you give an example from the book?
Sure. I mean, so they talked about exactly that sort of using surprise and delight with systems to do like unscalable things, right? And so one was like they heard this is a restaurant. If you haven't read the book, it's a restaurant that literally won best restaurant in the world and multiple Michelin stars and phenomenal service and incredible. They found out one of their guests for dinner was having an anniversary, and so the sommelier came up to them and asked them if they had like champagne or something, and they said, yeah, we have champagne in the freezer at home. And he's like, it's going to explode, like you can't do that. And he's insisted they give him their keys, and he went to their house and he like set up a bottle of champagne in their house for them and like made it so that it wouldn't blow up in their fridge, like just like bananas things like that, where it's super cool, right? Like just talk about above and beyond. But what I did want to kind of dig at is you mentioned, I think the big asterisk on things like a restaurant, a bar, a hotel, is it does cost them virtually nothing, right? Like if you give a patron at a bar a free drink, your margins on that are incredible. It does not cost the bar $13 to make the martini, and they're making one in profit off of that. Like it costs them cents. The only cost to upgrade a room is the opportunity cost of what if someone shows up and also books this room at the last minute for this exact time, right? So like it is virtually costless. Most of our listeners are either e-commerce brands or SaaS brands. And so a lot of the things that you would logically do are not going to be costless, right? Like if you sell an e-commerce product, first of all, to just give away that product for free that has real cost, and also there's a fixed amount that people are going to buy and a fixed timeline at which people are going to. So you're not only just giving it away, which eats cost, but you're also kind of removing that next purchase, right? SaaS, I think you could make an argument that like I could upgrade you for free, or I could, and what does it cost me to upgrade you? And that's actually is the one that I thought of first, of like, is there, when you think about pain, if you give someone a 1 month upgrade for free, and we all know that losing something hurts worse than the promise of getting something. So then at the end of this free month, did I actually screw myself because now I'm like, hey, this is going away? And they either have a bad memory or feel like they were getting sold to this whole time and it wasn't genuine. Like, how do you kind of think about that sort of angle of this?
Yep. I do like that breakdown between e-commerce and SaaS. I'd say for the e-commerce example, you're typically shipping something to a customer, right? So I would think about how to bring hospitality to that e-commerce brand. Like Chewy does it best. They'll include a handwritten note in the box if you happen to reach out to a support agent and have some type of, so like the cost of sending a letter is not that much, and that actually goes so much further than sending something free, right? If you take the time to write a note and that is personalized, that goes much further and kind of feels less icky, right, than sending something for free. And I think on the SaaS side, yeah, that is it's similar to hospitality, where giving a free month doesn't pay anything, doesn't cost the company that much in your margins. I personally haven't felt gross getting free months after a bad experience. I think, you're much more likely to go and tell your friends, hey, this company gave me a free month because this horrible thing happened.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Okay, so let's close the loop and actually bring this back to AI. I've got one. I guess we do pay for this podcast, so I'll do a little bit of a sponsored thing. Jason, somebody who does this really well is Rebecca, who we worked with, who was on the team at Peloton and now runs CX for Coterie. Shameless plug, I guess. They use our product to do this, where what they do is they use AI to extract, because what you need to do, it seems, and I'm curious to see what other ideas you have on this, is you basically need to sort of like leverage the human side, right? Like you can do one of two things. You can either automate a process, right? Where you mentioned Chewy. One of the things that they do is, like, if they have a system that sits and figures out if someone has mentioned that their dog has passed away. It's, I think, just on the form right now, or if they're canceling their subscription because unfortunately, like a beloved pet has passed away, they do a series of things to like make you feel better, and it sort of leaves, even though you're leaving the brand, it like leaves you with a positive experience, aware that like the next time you show up, you're more likely to choose them. It's like a retention effort. That's one way of doing it, right? You take something that happens as part of the customer life cycle and you make it a special moment. Or two, you give the team that is interacting with the person a lot of leeway. So both from an information and data standpoint, and from a, hey, like, you have a budget to like go above and beyond for people, and it will like impact your metrics in some way. That's the second way, right? You can do that too. And I think Coterie does a little bit of both, but they have recently started a program they like to call Little Wonders, which basically extracts a bunch of information about the person that the support agent is. Basically across all of their channels, it extracts information about, things like when their child's birthday is, or when they're due, or all this kind of stuff, and it just like puts it front and center into their ticketing tool, which is customer. And what happens is, suddenly the second an incoming message comes in and a support agent is looking at it, they have access to all this information that they can use to personalize the experience. And if somebody said, hey, like, my child's birthday is in April, but they said it in November, and now they're mentioning, hey, April is showing up. Wow, this is like a really long ad now. They will actually like say, hey, like, by the way, like, happy birthday to your baby. And, oftentimes the person will have dropped the baby's name in. And so the baby's name will also be somewhere in there. And that is something that is resulted in quite a lot of positivity for them. It seems like there's actually a case study on our site. If you go to Cotera.co/customers, but it's,
There's the
that's
ad.
one of the ways. There's the ad.
So
this,
how do you
yeah.
do
So-
this
so
in a
talk to
way
me a little
that's how do you do that in a way that's not creepy, right? That's the challenge for those types of programs. Is you have all this data, you
Yeah.
have actions that an agent could take. How do you do it in a way where it's like the Target example, where they were sending ads to people who were pregnant and didn't even know that they were pregnant at the time, right?
Yeah, I think it is something where and Rebecca and I talked about this at length. I think that the limit comes from. I think that it comes from sort of like the personal element, right? I think that the same experience, if they sort of applied their for customer facing chatbot to have the same experience, I think that would be a lot worse. Like, I think if somebody came to their site, like we'll talk about Coterie here, like, they're a premium brand, they're a premium product. The people that are coming to, talk to their support team expect a premium experience. They expect concierge or almost concierge levels of experience. And so when a person says that kind of stuff, it's fine. But the second you move that to where it's like, hey, like, now we're going to have the AI bot talk about your child. It is this soulless, personless, non-branded thing. That is creepy. I think that people don't like that. I think it's like, I'm fine with Delta Airlines texting me maybe my name and my birthday, where it's like, hey, thank you so much for being like a platinum whatever the hell member. Happy birthday, by the way. We see that like it's the same month as your birthday. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I'm used to this experience. Now that I say that, though, I think about I don't know if you guys were around the time of like Jeffrey the giraffe from Toys R Us, but Jeffrey the giraffe would always call me on my birthday, and I remember like being like, I really, really loved that experience. And it is like a
How
bot,
much?
right?
How much were you buying at Toys R Us that the
What?
giraffe called you? I got
We
zero
need to
calls.
Let's dig in here. We need to go deep.
We need to go deep. All right, ask me whatever.
Did he call
Well,
you
Jeffrey
at
the
home?
giraffe, Jeffrey the giraffe was like,
How
a
old were
recording.
you?
Like 4, like 7.
And you had a phone number? You had a phone?
It wasn't my phone. It was our home phone.
So the giraffe would call you and say, "Hey, Hey, Mrs. Syed, is Ibby home?"
No. It was always a recording. They would, sorry. Let me explain the experience painfully for you people who clearly were deprived of this as children. My birthday would come around every year. And
Important note: Ibby's birthday is amazingly close to a great shopping time of year.
It is. It falls on Thanksgiving quite a lot. Okay, so, I get a call. What would happen is my birthday would roll around, and I think my mom at some point had like signed up. My parents bought me enough toys. Like, I had enough toys, but it wasn't like, we weren't going to like Toys R Us like all the time. We go to Toys R Us like on very special occasions, like a major holiday. My parents are Muslim, so it'd be like on Eid, not Christmas. Or it would be like for our birthday. And so we were signed up for like the rewards program, and they had our phone number and stuff. And so then they would like, the giraffe would like leave basically a voice message on the phone, and it wouldn't say my name or anything. This was like pre-days of personalization. It would just be like, hey, like, heard it's someone's birthday, like something or other. And it wouldn't like offer like a discount or anything like that. It was clearly an ad. But like, I didn't know that as a 7-year-old.
Dude,
I was
I
like,
love
oh
that.
my God, like, that's crazy. And like, it's clever because it like reminds my mom. It makes my mom be like, oh, like, we should take this child to Toys R Us because like it's
even
their birthday.
more, it reminds you to remind the shit out of your mom.
Yeah, exactly.
This is genius.
Exactly.
We need to revive this. Bring it back.
First step, get landlines and answering machines back in the home. Second step, start calling kids with robots.
It's actually like really, really easy. Like, it is actually super, super easy to do this. I could do this on this call where like I can spin up an agent that has my like voice, but how do you make it not creepy, right?
Well, and also like there's a gatekeeper in that you're going to call one of the parents' cell phones and they're going to ignore your call. It'll go to voicemail, which they probably didn't set up. They certainly won't let their kid hear it. And then you lost the whole point of this.
But you could send an
Yeah.
email or something that has a video, or you could make it work in today's world. I'll give you a similar example at Peloton, and I wonder if this was creepier or not. So I started off as a support agent, and people would call in to cancel their membership because they were in their third trimester of pregnancy. They just knew that they wouldn't have the time during that period, and also you're not really working out that during that third trimester. So this was not sanctioned by Peloton. I would add a calendar reminder, 3 or 4 months out, and check in on the member and see if they reactivated. And then if they did reactivate, I would look at their support history and see, were there any indications that the pregnancy was positive, that the baby was fine, healthy. And then I would reach out or send an email and say, hey, so happy to have you back as part of the community. We'd love to send you a small gift. And I'd send out a onesie. We just happen to have extra Peloton onesies at the time. And folks, it seemed like you could very easily develop a program that would scale for a large, for your whole customer base. But I wonder, where is that line between creepy and not creepy? And I think there is that requirement of having a human in the loop for those types of delights.
Yeah, I think that
even just the level of looking for indications that everything went well, right? Because that's the risk of especially a pregnancy related surprise and delight moment, is you could be doubling down at one of the lowest lows of their entire life.
So maybe it's not worth some of the risk of being wrong, right?
Yeah, I think if it's very, very clear that I think that is definitely where it is. I think that there's a couple elements of that, right? If a random onesie just showed up, that would be real creepy, right? But the fact that you reached out and you said, I mean, obviously I wouldn't I think that, interestingly, right? I think that I'd be really interested if somebody, I personally wouldn't care, but I think most people would, if I knew that you had found my social media or something like that. But I also think that that's a very important, I think that's a very, very important thing that you need to check, trying to figure out if this baby was indeed born and healthy and fine, is very important to be able to doing this right. I don't know, I think that it's the fact that you were the one that reached out. I think that it came from a company. I think it said, hey, congratulations, you were very sure. And they don't think about I don't think that a person thinks, oh, what if I didn't have this child? I think that it would have been fine.
But say in the Jeffrey example, what if, God forbid, something had happened to you and you, or there are those
that would have
examples.
been my birthday. That would have made my birthday for my mom and dad a horrible reminder. That would have been absolutely. And I'm sure that happens, right? I think that does happen, but think
you got to think that the rate at which there is occurrences of a child dying post 7. But there have been, it's a much bigger outlier, and one that I think there'd be more forgiveness from the brand than there would around, so I think not no, but I think that, to your point, risk is inherently involved in this, in a decision like this, both from a cost, time, effort, but also how will it be perceived? Will it be creepy? Will it not be? Are we overstepping? Are we not? You should absolutely evaluate that. But it's not just a Boolean value. It is a scale of how much risk is this? What could go wrong?
Yeah.
How bad is that going wrong?
Do we need to send Ibby to therapy over him getting calls from a giraffe at age 7?
No, I really loved the giraffe. I think that one of the things that's going on here that's interesting is how do you scale the Jeffrey thing is interesting. And I think AI generated video, right? I won't spoil anything, but we've got I'll talk to you after. Oh, I don't want to spoil anything because it's there's a big surprise coming up for someone who may or may not listen to this podcast. But one of the things that's possible now is that you can generate sort of Pixar style videos for like special occasions or just for shits and gigs. I think like, developing somebody like a trailer for their birthday, that has like a custom voiceover can all be very nice and not sloppy and seem personalized, that some company took the time, some soulless company took the time to like use technology to like create you something unique and special. That's pretty interesting. We have sort of like creators and stuff that have like licensed their likeness to places like OpenAI and some of these companies to sort of like be virtual avatars of some kind. I think that would be interesting, right? Like Brad Pitt can most likely not like send a cameo. I think hiring Brad Pitt on Cameo would cost like $100 million, but Brad Pitt can probably sell his likeness or license his likeness to Cameo, and Cameo can pay Brad Pitt $5 million a year, and then extract sort of like small versions for at least a while. I don't know. There's so many like different things.
Yeah,
I think
turn Cameo into a subscription service, right? Now, instead of purchasing one and having it be a kind of like a joke, I have X number of credits per month for cameos to send, and it costs different levels of credits for like a Brad Pitt versus a Ibi Syed. Obviously, you'd be more expensive.
I would be free. I would be negative dollars. I'd have to pay them to send a video to me of me.
I think circling back to the CX perspective, I think it's try and identify areas of pain and minimize them, right? So in a example with AI is when you're having a handoff between a human and an AI, are people getting stuck? Or if somebody's speaking to a front end support agent who's not able to solve a problem, can the AI tell the agent, hey, let's pull in a supervisor, let's escalate this to tier 2, or tell the supervisor or tier 2 agent, hey, it's time to jump into this conversation, right?
Yeah.
There are ways you can operationalize this at a per ticket, per case level that Sean, to your point, aren't very costly, and it will pay. The cost of having a 90-minute phone call is super high. If you could identify that a 30-minute phone call is going to balloon to a 90-minute phone call by escalating at the right point, you could have unlock thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings in your operation.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I think that AI I think that the first place and the safest place to use AI is the monitoring side, actually. I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head where it's like trying to figure out, okay, like how do you know when somebody's at that peak point, right? Like that's, I think, like kind of bar none the easiest / like riskless thing to do from like a cost perspective, where it's like, listen, like if I can say, hey, like, listen, like I actually think if you had a bot that was sitting on the CX agent side that basically just told them, hey, like this is now in God's hands, i.e. your manager, we are going to now ping them and have them jump into this chat, and you can just send a message being like, hey, listen, like there's clearly something going on here, let me bring my boss into this. That actually, the fact that you did that probably turns the peak into like a pause. Like, there's probably like a positive moment just in doing that without them having to get mad and be like, manager.
I now want to build that for Lentil Labs. I love that idea.
Do it.
Some of the platforms have it.
Yeah, I think there's, and this is kind of going off of what both of you have said throughout this, of like, the first bit is, can you get AI to monitor and recognize sort of these, whether it's effort score or pain points or whatever, and then, building on your Lentil Lab internal notification kind of thing, like use that to send a message to people, and don't have the AI say like, here's what you should do about it. And let the empathetic, caring people that are on your CX team just do what's in their heart. And then you can monitor on the back end. And so you have AI set up to say, hey, anytime I send an internal alert about there being this peak, this pain point, whatever, we want to track that consumer's or user or whatever's behavior and use of the product for the next 60 days and see what happens. And now you can start to say like, okay, Jason intervened by sending a onesie. And we saw that, CSAT went up, whatever, all these things went up. We can now say more confidently that this is a solid intervention and this is a good thing we can do, as opposed to like, what if, you hadn't checked and you'd had like 10% of your people had negative outcomes and, reacted terribly to you sending this onesie. You can have like a new policy that says like, no fucking onesies. We're not doing onesies. And like, you can start to build this thing out, and it's done in a very, very human way. It's done acknowledging the risk. It's done leveraging what I think the unique strength of CX people is that they care so much. Like, to your point, they chose a job where they are getting screamed at all the time and are surrounded by awfulness and having to solve the worst problems that your product has. And they do it because they want to help people. And so give them the chance to do that bit and enjoy their job more too.
I love
like
that.
It's a rosy, it's a real rosy place to end if we so choose to.
I did want to talk about the end, like how
Do
to
it.
craft
We
a
haven't
positive
even
end.
talked about the
Yeah,
end.
yeah. Craft a positive end.
So like from a personal standpoint, when I am planning out a vacation, for example, I will think about how's my end experience going to look? And so I will pay more for a direct flight coming home than I would on the outbound. And that is to make sure that I'm not coming. Maybe I don't want to land at midnight. And so this way, when I'm thinking back to my vacation, I don't end on a negative. And I think from a CX perspective, like obviously AI summaries and crafting a nice follow-up email are the bread and butter for AI and for great service. So ending a call where you're summarizing what happened in a conversation, what the next steps are, those are things that any great support agent does by their nature, but AI can help power that by auto dispositioning, auto summarizing, right? That's like the key areas. And then the other one I think about at the end of a conversation, we talked a lot about service recovery types of scenarios. I like to give service recovery at the end rather than during that peak moment. So
Wait,
that
what's
allows
service recovery?
Giving away free subscriptions, sending out freebies for if you're an e-com brand, offering that refund instead of offering it in the moment during a bad delivery or whatever horrible thing that the customer went through. Let's say you're having a troubleshooting experience where the technician went out and they weren't able to fix it the first time, and you gave $100 refund, and then they weren't able to fix it the second time. Then you're offering another $100 refund, and that kind of feels cheap. By offering the service recovery at the end allows you to better target and match the amount, the right value of service recovery to whatever that experience is. Obviously, that doesn't make sense in all use cases, but sometimes it is better to give it right in the moment. It lessens the peak right there, but sometimes finishing on a positive note can help get you back to that 5-star support.
Interesting.
United does this, I think, the worst, but also I understand why they do it. So for United, if something goes wrong, you have to submit a form on their website, and you can't submit it. This is the only way you can get service recovery through United. There's a web form you have to submit, and then it can only happen once you've finished your journey. And like there is a time and place for that type of calculation, but it shouldn't be forced.
I love that. I was going to say, you brought up Chewy as a great example. And it's funny because I think that I can remember at least 4 other conversations on this podcast where he talked about how great Chewy's customer experiences and customer service is. And it wasn't that example. But it made me realize that like they're definitely the most cited brand. The most cited brands on this podcast are absolutely Coterie and Chewy. And I was like, man, I really wish we need to like, is it that they're just so far and away better than everybody else? And like, they're just incredible? Or is like the bar for customer service, like so low that most brands are just like so blah, and we can only think of like 2 really good examples. And I love that you balanced it out by having an absolutely horrible example too. So now we've got a full spectrum.
Thank you
I
for
think
reminding
for-
me about the shittiness of United Airlines.
That's right.
I think for
Delta.
babies,
At least we're not United.
for babies and dogs, those are areas that genuinely bring people, or pets in general, genuinely bring people joy. And so those are similar hospitality type brands. But you can bring it to any e-commerce brand. You just have to match you have to figure out what that right balance is between personalized, not creepy, and not crazy expensive either.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well, Jason, this was a ton of fun. If people want to learn more about you, more about Lentil Labs, if they want to work with you, what's the right way for people to get in touch or to not creepily follow you?
Yep. You can reach out on LinkedIn, Jason Katz, or my website's lentil-labs.com.
Great. We'll put those in the show notes.
Thank you so much for having me on. This was a blast. It was great to see you guys.
This was incredible. Thanks so much, Jason.